Hello, everybody. I have to admit, after doing this a couple of times, like it's a little jarring just to like, boom, we're in. I feel like we need a little more like warm-up music to like fade out of, but I don't know. I don't know how to produce that well yet. We'll get there by the end of May. Hey, everybody, thanks for joining us. We are doing another critical or key conversation on mental health. To keep things going, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and at Nivati, we find it to be really important to kind of start the conversation and help facilitate a conversation on mental health. And so throughout the month of May, we're doing these key conversations on mental health. We've got a variety of different guests and speakers that we're bringing in just to have a more casual conversation and talk about mental health from a variety of different angles within an organization, from the business culture side of things. And today, I'm really excited for the conversation that we have planned. We have with us Megan Galloway, who is with Campfire, and we're going to talk today specifically about communities and the importance that communities have within mental health. And then we also have with us joining our CXO over at Nivati, Joseph Draschil. So we appreciate you both for joining us today. All right. Megan, before we get going, do you want to introduce yourself? Is there anything else you want to say about yourself, like how cool you are before we get started?
I mean, obviously. Well, thank you for having me, you guys. This is going to be amazing. I'm excited for this conversation. And yeah, I'm Megan Galloway. I'm based out of Kansas City. I'm super excited to be having this conversation. Work with Campfire. Campfire is a learning platform for managers to come together and learn through community-based learning. So right up my alley, all this conversation. Spent a lot of time in the learning and development space, and love everything we're doing at Campfire.
Awesome. We're super excited to have you. To get things rolling, I've been asking a couple like icebreaker questions. Joseph had the opportunity to answer a couple of these last week if you saw those. I've got 4. We've got more we could go through, but I'm going to stick with 4 today just to get to know you a little bit better, and then we'll kind of get the conversation going. So, icebreakers. Are you a person who enjoys the mountains or the beach more?
The mountains, definitely.
All right. Being landlocked from Kansas City, I'm assuming that has something to do with that.
Yes.
Do you recharge your social battery in a crowd or alone?
Depends on the day, honestly. I'm what's called an ambivert. So I'm
All
both
right.
introverted and extroverted. It really just depends on what I'm feeling in the day.
Interesting. Is there like something that makes one better than the other on a given day? Is it just whether the sun's out or if it's cloudy or something like that? I'm just curious. I don't really know how that works.
That's a great thought. I don't know if I've ever really thought about what the triggers are for what I need. I do work out of my bedroom. So like David, I've been telling you, like this morning, I was feeling a little like stir crazy. I was ready to get out of here for a little bit. So I went to a coffee shop just to be around other humans. But later tonight, that means I probably will just like want to veg out and read a book or something.
All right. Because you had your social fill for the day. I like it. Okay. You started putting some answers in some of these, and I saw this and I was like, I don't know what this means. So what's your good luck charm or good luck superstition?
Oh, I love this. Okay, so I went to the University of Kansas for my undergrad. My grandfather went to the University of Kansas and got his PhD there. Both my parents met at the University of Kansas. My husband and I met at the University of Kansas. So we're big Jayhawk fans. And as you know, Jayhawks love their basketball. So I actually have like a stuffed Jayhawk that lives downstairs. And it comes out during March Madness, and it has to like sit very prominently in front of the television during all of the games. But it was my dad's back in the 80s. And he gave it to me. So I'll pass it down someday to my kids.
Amazing. That's pretty awesome. So if your kids don't go to Kansas, is that going to be a problem?
We're not going to
That's not an option.
Okay.
I'm just curious.
My oldest son's name is Kurt. He's actually named after my grandfather, my late grandfather that went there. So we tell him all the time, no pressure, but
You have no choice in life here. All right. Last one. I stole this question from a podcast I did a couple months ago, and I absolutely loved it and find it to be a very fascinating question. So you have the choice to either speak every language in the world or speak to animals. Which one do you choose?
It's tempting because I would be so curious to know what my cat was thinking or saying. But apart from that, I feel like there are just so many people, like billions of people throughout the world, and it'd be so amazing to be able to talk to them and learn from them and be able to get to know their experiences. So I think I'd go with the first one, getting to speak all the languages.
That's the extroverted side of you coming out right there, I'd say.
Yes, yes, you
Yeah.
got it.
All right. Awesome. Thanks so much for starting off with that. All right, let's go ahead and set the stage. So I'm currently reading a book. I've almost finished it, but there's a book out called Healing, and it's written by Thomas Insel, who is or was the head of the National Institute of Mental Health. There's a quote that came out of it. And I don't actually have the exact quote, but I thought it was a really interesting idea. He says, mental illness is a very unique issue in the fact that loneliness is not only a cause, but also an effect of mental illness. Meaning, it's kind of like almost not a virtuous cycle, but a vicious cycle in the fact that loneliness can actually cause people to feel like compound their mental health issues, but it also can cause them to have a mental health issue. So it's kind of a weird thing. Which is why communities and kind of peer-to-peer relationships are like a major driver in either supporting or even strengthening someone's mental health. I think generally speaking, even though we're all introverts at times, the need for community, the need for social support is really big. We are social creatures at our core, and which is why I think today's conversation is going to be very fascinating. You at Campfire, you and your team, Megan, at Campfire, I think have a really kind of one interesting, have a very interesting business and a business model, but your product is also very fascinating. Do you want to take a minute to kind of talk through what Campfire does and how you approach communities from a peer-to-peer learning standpoint?
Yeah, so all of our campfire sessions, so our customers that join us in campfires, it's a safe space where people can learn from each other. So we have a guide in all of our sessions. That guide is basically there as a coach to guide the conversation overall, but they're not like a sage on the stage. They're not instructing you on everything that you need to know. In fact, it's probably about 80% audience driven or participant driven versus it being instruction heavy. So really the goal is to get people to learn from each other, to create really generative experiences for people to just be able to talk about the real things that they're going through as a leader and as a manager, and then learn from people that have been there before, already done that, or going through similar things.
And you are putting peers in terms of people kind of at the same level, if you will, from company to company. So they're really talking to peers, but not necessarily personal relationships that they have. So it allows people to like generate ideas and whatnot from each other, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we have both ways. So some companies do campfires internally with their leaders, so their leaders can talk to each other and learn from each other inside their company. And then we also have
Hmm.
the cross-company campfires where people can learn from their peers at other companies and kind of get to know what other people do at other companies and other cultures, and just really get a different perspective as well.
Right. You have, I think, on your website. I actually lifted this off your website, but you have this quote that talks about being a manager is very isolating and lonely. Can you talk
Mhm.
about like where that comes from and what you guys are seeing and why you uh, or how you're seeing that happen?
Yeah. David, Joseph, are you managers or have you ever been managers?
Yes, and I can relate.
You
Joseph, I don't
can.
know, like if you
Yeah,
can relate in your management experience.
absolutely. Yep.
What do you think about it that makes it lonely or isolating?
This is how good Megan is, David. You asked your questions. He's like, tell me about your mother, right? She just turns it around. I'll answer first. Um, my approach to being a manager, I shouldn't say fundamentally shift, but it like deepened and grew roots in incredible ways. It was really transformative for me a few years back when I realized how much that my general approach to being a manager was, while rooted in a good intentions, that I was still doing a lot of things to diminish those below me because of how I saw myself and what that role was supposed to be as a leader and as a manager, right? I'm supposed to manage them. Oh, it's a horrible name. Without going too deep into the concept of being a manager that builds and makes geniuses instead of being a genius. What I realized as I started to shift to being a coach and a mentor and a support, the person who didn't have the answers necessarily, or maybe if I did have the answers, I wouldn't give them. I would be asking the questions to help develop them. I realized that that type of servant leadership, which is what I think a real good manager or a leader is, one who's focused on building those that are below them, is taxing emotionally, mentally, right? I have to do more. I have to be a better person. I have to be a bigger person in order to be a better manager and a better leader. And that's to say nothing of all the stuff with doing good one-on-ones and them bringing their heavy stuff to you and you making that a safe place. And so I'm gonna bring back from something that Haley Harris, our lead clinician here at Nivati, said last time. When she was asked the question of speak all languages or speak to all animals, she's like, oh, I have to do all languages only because I don't want to hear what all the animals are saying. She's like, I don't think I can handle all of that stuff. You think about it, right? She's a therapist, right? Counselor, and dealing with all of the post-traumatic stress and challenges of animals, every animal she encounters. She's like, I'm not ready to be an animal therapist for the world. So that type of thing, there's a real weight that comes with a being that type of safe place and support. And I think that concept transfers over to being a leader and a manager. And because you're caring so much, not that nobody else is doing it, but nobody else is doing your job. So it is, it's a heavy weight to bear, and can be isolating
Right.
if you let it.
I remember I thought I was doing pretty good. And I had somebody come up to me, one of my employees, tell me, like, you really suck at communicating. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm the most personable and like approachable person out there. And I know how to talk to people. And I remember like really internalizing that conversation and realizing maybe I'm not very good at this. And that actually was like one of the catalysts that drove me to like start talking to a therapist. And I used to call it communication practice because I realized that I was not like in a position or equipped to have certain type of conversations, or like avoided certain type of conversations because I didn't want to necessarily have them with employees. And I think that was one, a great experience for me to have with just therapy as a whole. But yeah, there I realized like I put as a manager in situations that one, I wasn't prepared for or wanting to do, and I didn't know who to turn to ask for help or anything like that. So I don't know if that answers your question, Megan, but that's where like it started to really stem from,
I
is those
love that.
situations.
I love that. I think that's really similar with what we see from our managers that are on the platform, the managers that we've talked to, is that being a manager is a big job. It's more than just managing people's tasks or trying to get them to meet certain outcomes in a super linear technical way.
Hmm.
And in fact, that's a lot of the challenge that people have is they're really great at their technical jobs. They get promoted, but they haven't had the skills or resources to know how to deal with all the things that you all are talking about. How do you be
Yeah.
this safe space for people? How do you support people? How do you coach them? How do you and then and in all of those things, like it's also revealing all of the things that you have that you want to work on as a person and as a leader and as a human being. And so it's kind of like the oxygen mask example where you're on the plane and it falls down and you're trying to figure out what you're supposed to do with this oxygen mask. If you have a child sitting next to you, they say put it on yourself first. It's the same idea here, right? Where to be a great leader, you have to be able to take care of yourself before you can take care of anyone on
Right.
your team. But our tendency is to do the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah. And I felt that. Like that was the first time I remember thinking, man, I've got to improve myself if I'm going to be able to talk to the employees. The there's a stat out there that came from Cigna that talks about 3 out of 5 American employees uh, have like a sense of loneliness, like they feel lonely, which I also think is exacerbated by the remote employee culture that is kind of going on. What do you like? Ideally, in your world, everybody signs up for Campfire, and then they have a community that's kind of built in. And I get that, but like generally speaking, when that's not necessarily an option, how do you recommend people go find a community? Like, where's a good place to turn to?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's going to be different for each individual person. It goes back to one of your icebreakers, like, are you introverted or are you extroverted? Because some
Yeah,
people, it comes really naturally for them to walk into any space and make a whole bunch of friends and feel connected with people. For other
right.
people, it takes a lot of work. And so there's a lot of different places, like especially like internally at your company. I've heard of a lot of great companies that are doing things like in their Slack channels or in their teams to have like pop up lunches virtually or in person or what have you in different geographic areas to get people to join. I've heard of really great situations where, um, like LinkedIn is a great example, in my opinion, of ways that people can build community and just get to know what other people are going through and getting connected in with new people that you may have never talked to before. So I think there's lots of great ways, but I think that you have to be really intentional about building a community and recognizing first that you're feeling those feelings of isolation or loneliness, because I think it is a lot more common. And I think even as we go into like more of a hybrid environment, a lot of companies are doing this like hybrid thing where people will be in the office a couple days and at home other days. Then
Hmm.
I think that the feelings associated with that transition are really hard on a lot of people because they're not really placing like how they're supposed to feel belonging in different areas of their life. And that's a hard feeling.
Right. Joseph, have you seen any unique experiences where trying to draw people into more of a community or more peer to peer, like within the local regions that you've lived in, to try to draw from, like in your own personal experience?
That have helped, that have been.
Yeah, that helps you personally, like kind of feel a little bit more connected on a professional level.
Yeah. Now, they're all ones that, when they have been personally meaningful for me, they are ones that I've opted into, which doesn't mean that I was necessarily presented, it was my idea for it, but that I had to be the
Right.
one to say, yes, I'm going to be a part. There's actually been ones that they're like, you're a part of this. And I'm like, okay, but not really. And then I wasn't. So one of the things that I've had the great opportunity to be a part of is Product Hive, which is it's a meetup, it's a community in Utah. And now it's actually spreading across the country, for product managers, designers, leaders, strategists. It even goes into some entrepreneurship and developers, but it's mostly there on the product managers, designers. And now I think there's upwards of 8,000 members. When we started, it was just a few hundred, and at least when we combined together a few of these different ones. But what that one has been, is has been really neat, because it's like-minded people and like-hearted people. Let me say that way. Not that everybody thinks the exact same way, but we all care about the exact same type of thing, and in a really important way, we care about each other as well. We're not just coming into it going, what can I get out of this? But also seeing where everyone else is in their different stages, and their different experiences, and bringing what they can. So there's meetups, and there's mentoring now, and visits, interactions, luncheons, presentations, talks. And for me, and I know for many, many, many of the community members, it's been a wonderful boon to have. But I think this is really just a microcosm of communities in general. I think it's why Campfire is a business, because this type of thing, connecting with individuals and learning together and learning from each other. Um, I mean, it's self-care, to be honest. Sure, it's
Right.
self, but it's like it's self taking care. It gives back in ways that are more than whatever you're bringing to it. I feel like if
Yeah.
you're doing it.
From an employer's perspective, like I think Joseph, you bring out a really great point. Like you kind of had to seek out this community, right? This product oriented community, and then you chose to participate. And I feel like individuals at times have a hard time, like certain individuals might have a hard time to take that initiative and do, right? Like their introvertedness, or uh, maybe they suffer from imposter syndrome, totally guilty of stuff like that, right? Where it throws up a barrier so that they can't participate, or they're not willing to participate, or find a community like that, even though they know it might help. Uh, what's the employer like? This is where I think the conversation can get interesting from an employer's perspective. Is how can the employer kind of take the initiative and make those options a little bit easier for the employees, especially those that are not as willing to go out on a limb to seek out these communities. And Megan, I'm assuming that like the Campfire, this is the whole reason Campfire does exist, is to help those employers find solutions for these employees. Is that right? Like, what kind of conversations are you having with the employers? Like, what's the responsibility that they're starting to fill now?
Yeah, and I think a large part of that as well is part of that responsibility is on a manager, for example. Like if they see that one of their team members is really struggling with something, that they can help to coach them or get them connected in with something that they know is of interest to them, because they have a relationship with them. They can tell something is off. They know ways to recommend that this person can get more engaged in a professional sense with the community. So I think a lot of what we're seeing is that people want to find ways to connect their managers with other people, and then they want to help their managers figure out the right ways to support their employees in meaningful human ways, so that they they take care of the employee in a more holistic way.
And then, do you find the adoption of a program like Campfire, does it get adopted pretty easily? Like, are people eager to jump in once the managers, or even the employers, the executive team, introduce a solution like that?
Yeah, I mean, we see large participation rates. I think part of that is people are just really excited to connect with each other in general. And then, especially in the cross company campfires, there's just such energy in the room. Like, immediately, I guide some of those as well. And when you're in them, like, you can tell people are just excited to meet each other. There's a little bit of feeling that
Yeah,
timidness of like, oh, there's a whole bunch of new people in the room, and I'm trying to, feel that situation out, and being a little nervous about it. But we try and facilitate that with conversations. Like, we have a spark at the beginning of all of these, kind of like your icebreakers that you had at the beginning,
hmm,
to get
yeah.
people talking and connected with each other, because that's the more that you can connect people with each other, I think the more safety exists. And then the more safety exists, the more you can have a lot of these really hard conversations that can bring to light with whether people are struggling, or whether they need help, or whether they're feeling excited about something, and you can empower them.
Right. Yeah, we host a couple communities dedicated to HR executives at Nivati, and I do so like one-on-one follow-ups with them, and I can't tell you how many times they're like, "Man, it just from an HR perspective, I get so focused in on trying to make sure these employees are having a good experience or whatever. Like I forget that I need to talk to somebody. I forget that I need to have, a peer or somebody to talk to, and they're really appreciative of kind of having a community built for HR. Um, and so yeah, I've seen it, like, and I think it's really incredible, and that's probably the biggest takeaway as we kind of start to wrap up here for today. The biggest takeaway that I'm seeing is one, community is important. There's no doubt about it. Personally, it's helped me. It's professionally helped me get half the jobs that I've had in my career, and the growth in my career that I've had, just being a part of a marketing oriented community and whatnot. But and Joseph, with your professional group, but I've had to like go seek that out. I've had to go find that, and I think from an employer's perspective, it's important to understand that not everybody is going to do that on their own. And so the more that the employer can help facilitate that, I think there's dividends from that. I'll end on this question here with you, Megan, and Joseph. If you have thoughts on this as well, I'd love your opinion on it. But what are the employers or the companies seeing like from a benefit once you introduce these communities to the employees? Like, what's the benefit that the company as a whole is seeing? And where, like, are you guys able to tangibly see that in the employees and the production and the creativity that's coming out of the company?
So Megan, if you're okay, I'm going to let you answer second because I feel like your answer is going to be. I don't want to end on the high, but so I'll jump in and say, from the personal experience that I've had with teams that I've been leading or areas within the organization that I've led, and them connecting or being connected with communities, geez, like the ROI, it's not even, it's silly how incredible the ROI is on communities, particularly where they are, where they're learning communities. And I don't just mean like they're specifically focused around learning, but they're communities that are safe, and the culture is that we are learning from each other and sharing and opening. I mean, that's what learning is, right? It's sharing and being vulnerable enough to both share and to receive. The short of it is, it's transformational. If connected in the right way, in my experience, both for teams and departments that I've led, and for myself personally, when we're engaging in these types of positive communities, it's transformational. I mentioned, just kind of wrap up what I had said earlier about it, a transformational experience for me as a manager that actually came as a part of a community, self-organized community learning experience. And geez, I'm going to be forever grateful for that experience, because I'm taking it with me through the rest of my life. Not even just what I did in that company, and it really changed the way I was in that company and what we were able to achieve. But it's been an investment in me for life. So that's mine, is transformational potential.
Right. Yeah.
That's hard to follow. That was great. Yeah, I think that's pretty spot on. It's interesting, like the market that we have right now in general, in the talent market, like people are really wanting a place where they can have fulfillment, they can have belonging, they feel like they're doing meaningful work. And I think that the only way that we can really do that is by helping people understand what they are doing makes a difference. And every job does make a difference. There's a reason why every job out there exists. And I think that managers are the ones that can make that really special. And I think that when you, and managers in general, like when you have a manager that you really, really care about, and they really care about you, it goes beyond just the time that you spend at that company. And the world is a really small place, and it continues to get smaller with the remote first culture. And so I think the more that we can treat each other like human beings and care for each other and build community and in more ways inside and outside of our companies, the better it's going to be for the next generation of people to come into the workplace.
Awesome. Thank you, Megan, so much for joining us. And Joseph, thank you for joining us and participating in this conversation. If you want to learn more about the HR specific communities that Nivati has, you're welcome to go to nivati.com/communities and join there. We've got a couple different options available for any HR folks. And then as well, Megan, where can we find more about Campfire if we want to look at bringing in more communities into the organization?
Yeah, definitely. We're at getcampfire.com. Love to have you. Also, we're hosting some open campfires on a regular basis. So anybody is welcome to join those just to check it out and see what it's all about and experience it for themselves. So I generally facilitate those, and I'd love to see anybody there.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We will continue our key conversations on mental health. Next week, our next one will actually be on Tuesday, where we will be kind of discussing the financial wellness and mental wellness. And that will be hosted by Amelia Wilcox, our CEO, and Spencer Barclays from a company called Safeology, which is focused on financial coaching. Should be a great conversation, and we hope you all tune in for that. This recording will also be available on LinkedIn, and we'll have a recap up on our blog post. But thank you again, Megan. Thank you, Joseph, for joining us, and we look forward to continuing the conversation on mental health throughout the month of May.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.